Hi, this is Amanda for Lavinia World, and today we're going to be making an interactive card with a swinging element on the front of it. As you can see, I'm using Rue again this week. I do adore her. We are going to be starting off with some spray inks to make our background. I'm going to be using some Distress Oxides and some Dylusions Sprays, and I will have those popping up on the screen as I use them, and they will be listed in the description box below. And any of the supplies that you can find in the Lavinia World store will be linked in that description box below. So we're going to be going through the spray section pretty quickly because it's really not all that exciting. I do heat set in between some of the layers. There's really no rhyme or reason to it. I guess when I get to a certain part that I think that I don't want to really muddy up my colors, I just hit it with the heat tool real quick. I do cut some of that out, but I do show you when I do use the heat tool. I'm just not showing you the whole heat setting process because I think we all know how to use a heat tool. If you have any questions about that, do feel free to ask me in the in the comment section below. So I am just kind of switching back and forth between the Oxides and the Dylusions Spray. Again, both of those are found in the Lavinia World store. I'm going to do some splattering here with the black marble spray. Now it does mix with the Oxides and the other Dylusions colors, so in the end it's more of a gray instead of a black. But it is what it is. It's not a big deal. I did splatter some, and then I put the sprayer nozzle back on, and I did spray some in the end to get some finer mist. As you can see here, it has turned gray. Now I'm doing some water spraying and splatters and whatnot, and I'm just going to dab that off, and then I do end up heat setting it when I'm done applying all the water. I do flip it around and spray some more. I do find that if you, at least with me, if I keep it one direction, I end up with a kind of a splatter pattern one direction, so I do tend to flip it around and spray the other way. Now I decided I wanted some white splatter, so I'm just taking an acrylic block and mixing it with some gesso and some water, and I'm just going to splatter some white on here and just kind of get some stars. This is going to be a night scene, so I just kind of wanted some white splatter for some stars. I'm concentrating them more towards the top because, of course, the stars would be in the sky, not more towards the bottom. So I did want some towards the bottom, but I wanted them a little bit more densely populated at the top. So as you can see, they kind of blended into my background as the gesso dried. The ink kind of soaked up into the stars, so, or the gesso kind of soaked into the ink, or however you want to put it. They turned blue basically, so I did add more gesso to get more white stars, because as the ink dried or whatever, the gesso didn't do that anymore, I guess is how I'm going to put it. As my background dried, the gesso stayed white, I guess is how to put it. So I did stamp and cut Rue off screen with my scan and cut. There are no dies for the Lavinia Stamps, so I did use my scan and cut here. I put an offset on her because of that that vine that she's hanging herself off of. Is kind of intricate. I didn't want the scan and cut to just eat it all up, so I put an offset on there, and then I'm ink blending some blues that will sort of match my background here. I didn't want it to completely match, but I did want it to kind of blend into the background a little bit. And then I'm just going around the white edges with a blue Marvy Le Plume pen that I had, and I've had forever. And now we're going to stamp these willow branches, or vines, whatever you want to call them, onto the background. And I'm going to stamp these several times. I'm just going to vary the lengths on how I put my stamps down, just to give me some interest in my background. And I'm going to stamp these with the VersaFine Claire in Nocturne, because I do find that this gives me the crispest image, especially since I'm using watercolor paper here. I don't think I mentioned that at the beginning, but I did pop it up on the screen. I am using Fabriano Artistico extra white watercolor paper. And because, of course, watercolor paper is textured, I did want to make sure that I got a nice crisp image, so that's why I'm using the VersaFine Claire. And I'm just, like I said, stamping those in several places. I want to fill up my background pretty good. And I am varying the lengths of my vines to give me some more interest. And then I'm going to come in after I stamp these ones here. I'm going to come in with some Distress Oxide in Peacock Feathers. Now you can't really see it a whole lot in the video. It shows up a little bit. I did have to stamp them several times to get them to even show up. But I did want to kind of add these as kind of like, so they fade into the background. They show up better in my final pictures, and they definitely show up better in person. But these just kind of fade into the background, and they just add more texture and color to the background. So like I said, in the video, you can kind of see them there, but as they dry, they kind of fade back. And like I said, this just adds more interest and texture to your background. Maybe I should have chose a little bit different color. I'm not sure. Like I said, in real life, you can see them a lot better than they're showing up on video. And if you take a look at the final pictures, you can see them better. If you look at the pictures on my blog where they're still pictures, you can definitely see that better. So here I'm using a DIY shimmer spray that I make with my Perfect Pearls and water. It gives you a really shiny effect on your cards when you spray that on there. So I'm just going to apply the card panel to a black mat that is a 1/4 inch bigger than the panel that I have here, which gives me a 1/8 inch border around the card. It's something that I like to do on a lot of my cards. I just think that it grounds the image. On bright colors, it kind of makes them pop, but this just kind of grounds the image. So now I'm just taking my my image here of Rue. I'm just kind of figuring out where I want her to be, and figuring out where I'm going to punch the hole to make her swing. So I'm just going to mark that with a pencil here, and then we're going to punch that hole. And I am going to use my We Are Memory Keepers Big Chomp. I don't need the big bite portion of it. I don't need that that depth that it has, but it's got a really small hole punch on it, and I'm using it for that because I don't have any really small hole punches except for the big bite or big chomp or whatever it's called. I don't really remember what it's called. So when I cut Rue out on the scan and cut, it'll scan the image and it kind of like saves the file that it cuts. And so I just stuck another piece of paper on there and cut Rue out again. I didn't stamp her again or anything. And this is going to be my backing piece where I'm going to sandwich this penny, which is a weight to help it swing. And then I'm going to sandwich my brad in between there too, so the brad doesn't show. So I'm just going to punch the hole in the back piece, and then I'm going to stick my little brad, and I just have the mini brads through that back piece, and then we're going to stick the top Rue that is stamped and ink blended on top, and just glue that all together. So it's just sandwiching everything in there, and you can't see the penny or the brad. You can see a little bit through the side, but if somebody's investigating or looking at your cards that closely, I always say they should just be slapped. Or they don't deserve your handmade cards. They should just be enjoying what you made them and not picking them apart. So I'm just squeezing everything together real tightly here, trying to get everything sandwiched together real tight, and so you can't see anything, but some of the stuff didn't get together that closely, like especially around the brad there. That's a real tight squeeze. I could have done a bigger offset, I guess, but so I cut some of that out so you didn't have to see me fiddling with that too much. So when you put the brad in here, you want it to be somewhat loose. So I put it on there, and it was, it wasn't swinging. It was swinging, but it wasn't swinging as well as I would have liked. So I'm going to stick it back on my table here and put my scissors, put the end of my scissors there so it can have like a little shim, I guess is what you would call it. You can use anything really, just something that gives you a little bit of leeway so your brad isn't on there real tight. And so then it swung better, but I still wasn't completely happy with it. it felt like there was still some, you can see there's still some friction there. So I'm going to use my anti-static powder tool, and I really call this kind of the paper crafter's lube, really, since you can't like use oil or anything obviously on paper. So the anti-static powder tool works really great for this when you have moving parts with interactive cards. So now you can see swinging much better, except for obviously when I got a little wild there and her leg got caught on the edge of the card. So then I decided I just wanted something else on the background. So I pulled out the Keeping the Faith like word collage kind of stamp here. And I'm going to stamp it in the Night of Navy Stampin' Up! Ink here, because I wanted it to be a tone-on-tone kind of stamping in the background. I wanted it to show up but not be like in your face. So I'm just going to stamp that, and I really think that that finished off my background real nicely. So I did stamp that a couple times. I believe I only showed it once though. I do have like a dip in my table, so sometimes these larger stamps are a little bit harder for me to stamp. I really have to CPR them and stamp them a couple times to get a real nice impression. So now I'm just going to glue my card front to my card base. You do want to make sure that you avoid that brad area. That way you're not gluing the brad down, and then you obviously Rue will not swing back and forth. You could use some foam tape, I suppose, but I didn't want to. Just gluing it down flat, it still swung just fine. So then if you've been to my channel before or watched very many of my videos, you know that often when I make backgrounds and I cut a little strip off, my watercolor paper on this happened to be cut like 6 by 4.5 or something like that, so I did have a bigger strip here. I will often glue those little strips to the insides of my cards. So here it is, a nice view of it swinging back and forth, and you can see the shimmer there from my DIY shimmer spray and the inside. And so that finishes up the card for today. I hope that you enjoyed it. Don't forget that there are supply links in the description box below. There are links to the Anything Lavinia Facebook group, links to the Lavinia World shop, and links to my personal social media as well. And as always, have a great day.